Hello everybody, Jade Hamilton here again, and today I'm going to read you some more of the Pinballs, but I'm going to do a couple of quick tags before I do. I've got Astrid here with me today, my little Astrid Daryl, as in Daryl Hannah, who the movie buffs out there will probably remember from the movie Splash, in which she played a mermaid alongside a very lovelorn Tom Hanks. Lovely film. If you do get a chance to see it, do. It's great fun. But yes, I named Astrid Daryl after Daryl Hannah. She has got on this beautiful shell pink outfit. It's a sweatshirt and trousers, and I think it's originally Georgia Asda, but it was given to me by my wonderful friend Jay at Dolls UK, who, if you don't follow her already, don't subscribe to her already, do. She's a lovely lady with lots of lovely babies, who has a real passion for dolls and baby clothes and all sorts of other wonderful things. Yes, Astrid's got her Dumbo outfit on, so we are doing Disney Monday, which is hosted and run by our lovely friend Dee, who's at the Baby Patch. If you haven't subscribed to Dee already, do. She's a lovely, lovely lady. She's full of fun. She's incredibly sweet, and she deserves more subs. So do check her out if you can. So that's Disney Monday, and because I haven't put this outfit on Astrid before, I'm also joining in Jay's tag, which is new doll clothes. So thank you again very much for this beautiful outfit, Jay. It really suits Astrid. It's lovely and comfy for her. As you can probably see, Astrid is a gorgeous pale pink fairy bear. Actually, she's got two little lavender sparkly wings sticking out of her collar under her bib, and she's got a little plasticized bib on that's got pale pink edging. It always matches her suit, actually, and it says "Twinkle Twinkle" on the front and it's got a tatty teddy with a little blue nose, because Astrid, as some of you might know, means star-like. So when I saw that bib, I knew that she had to have that one because it was so appropriate for her. So thank you to Jay for the wonderful happy mail and for administering the new doll clothes tag for us, and thank you to Dee at the Baby Patch for doing Disney Monday. Thank you so much, ladies. I really do appreciate it. And as I say, go over and see them if you haven't already. Right. After all that preamble, let's get back to chapter 2 of the Pinballs. As per all the videos where I read, all copyright goes to the author and the publisher, which in this case is Betsy Byers or Betsy Cromer Byers, depending on which edition you've got, and HarperCollins. I own absolutely nothing. Settle yourself down, grab yourself a hot drink if you've got one, and here we go. There we go. Chapter 2. Carly had been suspicious of people since the day she was born. She swore she could remember being dropped on the floor by the doctor who delivered her. You weren't dropped, her mother had told her. All right then, why is my face so flat? Was I ironed? Carly also claimed that when she was two months old, a babysitter had stolen a golden cross from around her neck. No babysitter ever stole a gold cross from you, her mother had told her. All right then, where is it? Carly believed everyone was out to do her in, and she disliked Mrs. Mason, the foster mother, as soon as she'd seen her standing in the doorway. I knew she'd have on an apron, Carly said to the social worker. She's trying to copy herself after Mrs. Walton, sorry. Unsuccessfully, I might add. Maybe she has on the apron because she was cooking, Carly. I should be the social worker. I'm not fooled by things like aprons. She also didn't like the Masons' living room. This is right out of Leave It to Beaver, she said. She especially distrusted the row of photographs over the fireplace. 17 pictures of, Carly guessed, 17 foster children. Well, my picture's not going up there, she grumbled to herself. And nobody better snap me when I'm not looking either. She sat. Mrs. Wason waited until Young and Restless was over, and then said, Carly, I'm still here. Well, come on and have some lunch. Then afterward you can help me get the boys' room ready. Carly turned. She looked interested for the first time. The boys? She asked. There's going to be some boys here? Yes, 2 boys are coming this afternoon. Thomas J. and Harvey. How old? 8 and 13. Oh, boo, too young. Carly got up from the footstool. What's wrong with them? Wrong with them? Yeah, why do they have to be here? I'm here because I got a bum stepfather. What's their trouble? Well, I guess they'll have to tell you that. They'll have to tell you that. Carly lifted her hair up off her neck. How about the 13-year-old? She asked. What's he like? Big for his age, I hope. He has 2 broken legs. That's about all I can tell you. Well, Carly said, that let's out dancing. Carly was sitting in front of the television when Harvey arrived. He had to be carried in because of his legs. They set the wheelchair down by Carly's footstool. She looked around. What happened to your legs? She asked. She was interested in medical matters. He said, Nothing. Well, something must have happened. They don't put casts on your legs for the fun of it. In fact, they won't put casts on your legs unless you've had a real accident. I know because a friend of mine tried to get a cast put on her ankle so she wouldn't have to be in Junior Olympics and they wouldn't do it. She waited. Then she said, So, what happened? There was a long pause. Harvey looked down at his legs. In his mind, the shiny grand dam lunged over him again. He felt sick. He said, If you must know, I broke my legs playing football. He wished it had happened that way. A boy at school had broken his ankle playing football, and everyone in school had autographed his cast. Girls had even kissed the cast and left their lipstick prints. Harvey's casts were white as snow. He wished he had thought to forge some names on them. Love and kisses from Linda. Best wishes to a wonderful English student from Miss Howell. Carly was still looking at him, eyeing the casts, his toes sticking out the end. Then she glanced up at his face. What position were you playing? Harvey hesitated. Quarterback, he said. Carly snorted. You're no quarterback. I've seen Joe Namath in person. She looked him over. If you were playing football at all, you were probably the ball. Harvey kept looking at his legs. Carly decided to give him one more chance. So what really happened? I was playing football, he insisted. Listen, Carly said. This is one of my favourite shows, so if you're going to tell me a bunch of lies about what happened to your legs, well, I'll just go back to watching my show. Go back to watching it, Harvey said. Thomas J. arrived after supper. Chapter 3. Thomas J. arrived after supper. He'd been living with the Benson twins so long that he yelled everything. That was the only way he could be heard at the Bensons. The twins were almost deaf. Where do I put my things? He yelled at Mrs. Benson. Why, right back here, Thomas G. I'm putting you and Harvey in the same room, so you can help if he needs that. You can help him if he needs that. I'll be glad to, he yelled. He was used to helping people. If Harvey has any trouble in the night, he can call me. I'll call you. He's sure got the voice for it, Carly said. Do I put my things in the drawer or just leave them in the suitcase? Carly spun around on the footstool. Will you keep your voice down? I'm trying to hear the television. I'll be glad to, Thomas J. yelled. That night, the three of them sat watching Tony, Orlando and Dawn. What's that, Astrid? What's Tony, Orlando and Dawn? It's a variety show that used to be on in the 70s. Tony Orlando was a singer that used to wear a very smart suit with a cummerbund. And he used to have two ladies called Dawn singing with him. One of their songs to sing was Tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree. And they also had one called Knock Three Times, which is a very nice, very good song. That night, the three of them sat watching Tony, Orlando and Dawn. Now, this really is one of my favourite shows, Carly said as soon as it was announced. She gave each of them a long, hard look. Thomas J. nodded. Actually, he would rather have watched something else. The show brought back sad memories. It had been one of the Benson twins' favourites. The twins had always liked anything that came in pairs. Double mint gum commercials brought them hobbling, and Dawn, in their matching dresses, looked like twins, even though they weren't. "Sing the song, girls," Tony Orlando said, stepping back on his high-heeled shoes. Thomas J. felt awful. He could remember the twins leaning forward on their canes, trembling a little as they squinted at Dawn. They had the oldest television set in Macomb County, and they had to lean close to see anything. He hoped there was a TV set at the hospital where they'd been taken. They'd broken their hips on the same day. They'd been coming in from the garden. Thomas J. had been right behind them carrying a bushel basket of weeds when one of them had slipped. She'd grabbed the other for support, and they both had gone down on the path. One had broken her right hip, the other her left. It was not until they were being admitted to the hospital that Thomas J. had learned their first names. For 6 years, he'd just called both of them Aunt Benson. Their first names were Thomas and Jefferson. They'd been named for their father's favourite president. That's how he'd gotten the name Thomas J. He'd been named for them. Don't worry, Thomas J., they told him in the emergency room where they'd lain on side-by-side tables. "We'll get over this, won't we, sister?" "I will." "We will. We both will, because everybody in our family lived to be at least 90. Thomas J. had nodded. He knew their father had lived to be 96. Their father would have lived longer, except that a limb fell off a tree and hit him on the head. The twins had kept the limb on the back porch for a long while, and the only time the twins had been angry at Thomas J. was when he, not knowing the importance of the limb, had broken it up for firewood. Andy Griffith was on the television now, telling a long joke. Carly said, "Why doesn't he get off? Nobody wants to listen to him." "I do," Harvey said. Carly glanced at him. "You would," she said. Harvey felt a twinge in his right leg. It was the worst of the breaks. The bone had gone right through the skin. He looked at the back of Carly's head. He would have liked to answer her back, to insult her, but he knew that Carly could out-insult anybody he'd ever met. "He gives me a pain," Carly said. She glanced around the room, taking in everyone present. "And he's not the only one." Chapter 4. Carly entered her room slowly. It was the first time she'd slept in a room by herself. At one time in her life, she had slept with a cousin, her stepfather's 2 daughters, and a half-sister, all in one bed. She'd spent her night saying, "Move over!" and "Who do you think you are, Miss America?" She walked slowly over to the dresser and looked at herself in the mirror. She developed a way of smiling that hid her crooked lower teeth. She smiled at herself now, making sure she still had the technique. Suddenly, she heard a noise behind her. She swirled around. She didn't like anybody watching her when she was looking at herself. When she saw it was Thomas J, she could have stung him. What are you staring at? Nothing. I just wanted to tell you I found your earring. He came in with a small, pleased smile. He was thin and walked as carefully as an old person. He held out the earring. When Carly had discovered one of her earrings was missing just after Tony, Orlando and Dawn, she'd accused everyone in the house of stealing it. I'm going to find that earring if I have to turn every one of you upside down and shake you, she'd said. That earring is pure gold. Now, Carly, no one stole your earring, Mrs. Mason had said. All right then, where is it? The earring was in the bathroom, Thomas J said, still smiling. It was by the basin. He held it out. He'd been so pleased when he found it He'd been as pleased when he found it as if it had been a gold nugget. He couldn't wait to bring it to her. Once, when he found the Benson's father's gold watch, they had been so happy they'd patted him. It was the only time the Benson twins had ever touched him on purpose. He could still remember their stiff old fingers tapping his head. Good boy, they'd said. It had made him feel warm and happy. He'd wanted them to lose the watch over and over again so he could keep finding it, the way a dog keeps fetching a stick. Also, he wanted Carly to like him. He admired her long flowing hair, lion-coloured, made him aware of his own scraggly head. The Benson twins always cut his hair together, one on each side, without bothering to check the other's work. The Benson twins always cut his hair together, one on each side, neither bothering to stop and check the other's work. As he came toward her, he smoothed his hair. Carly snatched the earring from him and looked at it suspiciously. So you just found it, huh? He didn't get her meaning. Yes, it was by the basin. I looked down and there it was. Where are we? So you just found it, huh? You didn't get her meaning. Yes, it was by the basin. Yes, it was by the basin. I looked down and there it was. It was like the time the Benson twins lost their father's watch and I... Ha! Strange that you just happened to find it after I announced I was going to search everybody's room. Now he got her meaning. Oh, I didn't steal it. Really, I didn't. I found it. It was by the basin, honest. His voice got even louder. You can ask Mrs. Mason if you don't believe me. She heard me find it. Carly put the earring back on her ear. I'll tell you one thing. I'm having my ears pierced as soon as possible. That's the only way things are going to be safe around here. I found it it, I tell you, Thomas J yelled. He took 2 steps backwards. I found it! All right, you found it, Carly said. She glanced at the open door. Keep your voice down. She turned back to the mirror. I can see the blind pig can come up with an acorn every now and then. After Thomas J left, Carly got into bed and stared up at the ceiling. Mrs. Mason passed by in the hall and stuck her head in the door. Everything all right, Carly? What do you think? What do you think? Carly said. Oh, I imagine things seem very wrong tonight. Seem, Carly said. Mrs. Mason came in and stood by the bed. She patted Carly's arm. The first night is always the hardest. Carly was silent. Mrs. Mason sat on the edge of the bed. And I know how you feel. How do you know? Have you ever been in a foster home? I've had a lot of kids staying with me. 17, not counting you 3. And all 17 told me the first night was the worst. They all said they just felt sick. She kept her hand on Carly's arm. I guess homesickness is a very real kind of illness, like measles or mumps. Too bad there's not a vaccine. Yes, only the people that give money for vaccines, they want to give for heart diseases and polio, stuff their kids might get. Nobody worries about us. Yes, they do, Carly. Anyway, the only reason I came was because Russell, that's my stepfather, threatened to cut off all my hair. And it took me since the 4th grade to grow this hair. She yanked the sheets up higher on her shoulders. Now I wonder if it was worth it. Carly, did you see the pictures of the kids in the living room? How could I miss? Well, all of those kids have gone into the world. 2 of them are in college now. They write me letters. One has his own service station. Some are back with their families. It all works out sometimes. She smiled. Even without a vaccine. She waited for a moment and patted Carly's arm again. Then she rose from the bed. Things'll be better tomorrow. You'll see. They better be, Carly answered, and Mrs. Mason left the room. She turned to face the wall. She thought, I could always run away. Harvey and Thomas J shared the room across the hall. Chapter 5. Harvey and Thomas J shared the room across the hall. It had bunk beds. Because of his broken legs, Harvey got the bottom bunk. He eased himself down on the mattress and looked up at the springs. Thomas J paused beside the bed. Every night at the Bensons, he'd said his prayers like the twins did. On his knees beside the bed, arms out straight as boards, fingers pointed up. He felt shy about praying in front of Harvey. What are you standing there for? Harvey asked, glancing at him. Nothing. Still, Thomas J hesitated. The habit to pray was strong. Harvey was still looking at him. Abruptly, Thomas J climbed up the ladder to his bed. You want to know how I broke my legs? Harvey asked. Thomas J. was on his knees in the upper bunk. Yes, he answered. Yes, he answered. I was playing football, quarterback, and I got tackled too hard. He stared down at his cast, at his pink toes. Everyone was going to autograph my cast, all my friends, but I had to come here before they could. That's too bad, Thomas J. said. He was still in praying position, but he eased back on his heels. You know, bones break very easily. You can break a bone just walking down the path. Oh, I don't know about that, Harvey said. Yes, it really can happen. Thomas J. leaned over the edge of the bunk and looked at Harvey. The Benson twins, that's who I lived with before I came here, broke their hips just walking down a path to the house. They slipped. Oh, well, yeah, sure, if they slipped. That's why I had to come here. They're both in the hospital. I had to come here because there was no one to take care of me. How about your mother? My mother doesn't live with us. Or my mum doesn't live with us anymore. Oh, Thomas J. waited, watching Harvey. But Harvey had no more to say. After a moment, Thomas J. withdrew to his bunk. On the bottom bed, Harvey lay without moving. Harvey had not seen his mother in 3 years. She'd gone to Virginia to live in a commune with 19 other people and find herself by going back to nature. Harvey could still remember the last terrible argument between his parents. I know you cannot understand my having to leave, his mother had said. Harvey had crouched on the stairs, peering round the corner from time to time at the twisted, angry faces. Their faces looked large enough, gnarled enough to put on a cathedral. But I have to find myself. Find yourself? What does that mean? The man who invented the term find yourself ought to be locked up in a mental hospital. Just sorry, I know this is a bit late in the day to say this, but because this is set in the 70s, the language, as they would say on the BBC, reflects the language, reflects the attitudes of the time. So yeah, there'll be a few clangers, I think, about things that we wouldn't necessarily say now. It means I don't know who I am anymore. I have no identity. You're my wife. Isn't that identity enough? You're Harvey's mother. And remember, you're the one who wanted a kid so much. I said let's wait, but oh no, you. I want to be me. Well, be you. Be anything you want to be. Just don't go running off to some fool place in Virginia where they run around naked. Where people run around naked. They don't run around naked. They're very caring people. It's no use trying to make you understand. His mother was talking through clenched teeth now. We cannot communicate. We never could. I knew this would happen when you started those yoga lessons. The yoga classes have nothing to do with this. I'm just trying to. And that Maharishma, or whatever he's called himself, I suppose he had nothing to do with it either. It's no use talking to you. You could never understand it in a million years. Harvey had crept back up the stairs then. He couldn't understand either. He just hoped that his mother would return in a week or two, having found herself. He imagined her floating in like Mother Nature with daisies in her hair and peace in her heart. She'd never come back. The only thing he'd seen of her was a picture in the New York Times magazine. She and some of the other people had been pictured on their Virginia farm. His mother had been weaving a hammock with two men. They had looked so much alike, the two men and his mum, that Harvey had had a hard time picking her out. His father had filed the whole New York Times at the fireplace when he saw it, and had drunk martinis until he'd passed out on the sofa. On the upper bunk, Thomas J. finished his prayer. He lay down on the stiff, clean sheet. "Well, good night," he said. "Good night," Harvey answered. Chapter 6. It was morning, and Harvey's legs hurt. He didn't feel like getting out of bed, and so Mrs. Mason sent Carly in with a breakfast tray. "I wish someone would bring me a tray," Carly said as she entered. She set it on his bedside table. He stood staring down at him. Harvey looked at the tray. "It's little crunches," Carly said. "They'll make you big and strong." She looked at him. "Although in your case it's going to take more than little crunches, if you ask me. I wonder if they make big crunches." Harvey said nothing. She put one hand on her hip. "Whew," she said. "If someone brought me a breakfast tray, I wouldn't just lie there like a rope." Harvey said nothing. "If somebody brought me a breakfast tray, I'd drop over dead." She waited. Then she said, "You don't get anything, do you? I just gave you the perfect chance to insult me. I just said, if somebody brought me a breakfast tray, I'd drop over dead. Now you should say, is that a promise?" Carly waited. Then she said, "I give up. You're hopeless." She started from the room. "When you get through eating, if you ever do, call and the slave of the world will come back for your tray." Carly was all the way out the door when he said, "Thank you, Carly." Carly stopped. She stood motionless in the hall for a moment, and then she said, "No need to thank me." She kept standing there. She felt Harvey had only thanked her to make her feel bad, and he'd succeeded. For some reason, insults didn't hurt her. People could insult her all day long, and she'd insult them right back. But let somebody say something polite or nice to her, it made her feel terrible. Carly looked across at the opposite wall. The phone was there, and she walked over slowly. Suddenly, she wanted to make a long-distance call. Not to her mother, she decided. She wanted to call somebody like Cher or Rhoda or Mary Tyler Moore. "Hi," she would say. "This is Carly. Let me tell you the rotten thing that happened to me." "What's that, Astrid?" Who's Rhoda and Mary Tyler Moore?" "Oh, they're famous people. Like Cher." Cher's a famous singer. Rhoda and Mary Tyler Moore. Well, they're Rhoda's a character on a TV show, and Mary Tyler Moore, although there is an actress called Mary Tyler Moore, she played a version of herself on telly, on a sitcom, for quite some time. And her husband was played by the wonderful Dick Van Dyke. Um, yes, exactly. Dick Van Dyke from Mary Poppins. That's right. Clever girl. Aren't you clever to remember that? She was staring at the phone, wondering how you called a star, when Mrs. Mason appeared in the doorway. Did you take Harvey's tree? Yeah, but he didn't eat. Mrs. Mason wiped her hands on her apron. We're going to have to be especially nice to Harvey in the next few weeks. To Harvey? Yes, he's having a rough time of it. Well, how about me? Carly said. Why doesn't anybody think of being especially nice to me? What do I have to do to get some attention around here? Break both my legs? No, Carly. Would a wrist be enough? Mrs. Mason put her hand on Carly's shoulder. I just have the feeling you can help, Harvey. Whew, are you off base? You're a very strong girl, Carly, whether you know it or not. Well, if Harvey's depending on me for help, he's going to go down the drain. Listen, Carly. No, you listen. Harvey and me and Thomas J are just like pinballs. Somebody put in a dime, punched a button, and out we came, ready or not, and settled in the same groove. That's all. She looked at Mrs. Mason. Now, you don't see pinballs helping each other, do you? Carly, they can't. They're just things. They hit this bumper, they go over there. They hit that light, they go over there. Go over here, sorry. They hit that light, they go over there. Carly. And as soon as they get settled, somebody comes in and puts in another dime and off they go again. Carly was standing by the phone. She reached up and dialed 0. I can't help Harvey and I can't help myself. I think you can, Mrs. Mason said. Take a good look at a pinball machine sometime, Carly said. You might learn something about life. In his room, Harvey lay without moving. He'd heard every word of the conversation. He wished his father had heard it too. You kids today got it easy, his father was always saying. It was tough when I was a kid, none of this $5 here and $10 there. Harvey, who asked for money only when he needed it for food, always waited in silence. His father would rave some more about how easy Harvey had it, and then he would pull some bills from his pocket. He'd toss them at Harvey so Harvey would have to pick them up from the floor. Then Harvey's father always ended with, Later you'll find things aren't so easy, and you'll find out the hard way like me. Harvey looked down at his legs. When his father said, the hard way, Harvey thought, he really meant the hard way. Slowly, as though his arms were broken instead of his legs, he began to eat his cereal. Well, it sounds like everybody in the Mason household is having a bit of a rough time at the moment. But I think things will get better, don't you, Astrid? Thank you so much, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching, subscribing, commenting. It really makes my day when you do. And Astrid and I will see you again soon. Can you wave, Astrid? Good girl. Bye bye, everybody. Cheerio.